21 years ago, at this moment, the attack on America began. It is not a piece of history for us now. It is still a very active struggle, particularly for some of the people who are still struggling from the health effects of what happened that day. And I want to talk about that right now. Joining me is the Republican Congressman Andrew Garbarino of New York, who's written a letter to the Energy and Commerce Committee demanding attention for the World Trade Center health program, which is currently set to run out of funding in a year. Congressman, good to see you. Thank you for being with us. First of all, your thoughts. This is 21 years ago, and yet we are living with the active effects of it, particularly more so than in our threats to democracy and freedom than we are in the health threats that are faced by those people who are still affected by them.
Yeah, it's amazing. 21 years ago, and it still feels like yesterday for me. I can remember it like yesterday. But the fight is not over. And as you said, the long-lasting health effects, the medical effects from that day are still with us, and they keep getting worse. Just in the last 3 years, the number of people diagnosed with 9/11 related cancers has doubled just over the last 3 years. So the problem is not getting better. It's getting worse. And we in Congress need to make sure that those first responders that day, the people that were there that day and the weeks afterwards on the pile are taken care of.
This is not a day I really want to talk politics, but I do want to ask you, because you would like a bipartisan solution to this, and you've written to the head of the Energy and Commerce Committee to do that. There was an effort to put this in the Build Back Better bill, and Republicans didn't want it there. They wanted it as a standalone bill. Can you explain that to me?
Well, there are a couple of technical fixes that are necessary in the current bipartisan bill, the one that I have with Congresswoman Maloney and Congressman Nadler. There are some technical fixes, as well as there's a study bill in there that focuses on the effects of children that day that were down there. So those two items, the technical fixes and the study, couldn't be fixed in the original Build Back Better legislation. So this bill, or parts of it, were going to need to be passed anyway. And right now there is a bipartisan fix. It's the one that I currently sponsor. So I'd love to see the chairman. I'm pleading with him and members of that committee to move the bill forward so we can get this taken care of. And our first responders don't have to worry about whether or not they're going to have the health care that they deserve and need in 2 years.
What is the likelihood of either your bill or something that resembles it moving forward on a bipartisan basis? Because obviously, if it does, the bill gets passed and this problem gets solved.
Well, exactly. I mean, if this bill was put on the floor this week, we return to Congress session this week. If it was put on the floor, it would pass. So I hope. I'm pleading with the majority. I'm in the minority right now. We can't control what comes to the floor. So that's why we're sending these letters. They're bipartisan letters. Some of them we've sent have been bipartisan letters to move this legislation. Like you said, if it comes to the floor, it would pass. I hope it's as a standalone bill. But as of right now, I would take it if it was put as part of the NDAA or maybe the end-of-year funding bill. But we just needed to get done. It needs to get done this year. It needs to get done as soon as possible.
Just to be clear, you would support this in any fashion that gets it done, politics aside. You're prepared to put aside the fact that Republicans and Democrats don't vote on a lot of things together in the House these days.
Like I said, if this bill came up this week by itself, it would pass. But it needs to get done. It needs to get done any way possible now, because the longer we put it off, the more uncertainty, the more that these men and women, these first responders, these firemen, these cops, these transit workers who are on the pile don't know if they're going to have the treatment that they need. It's a very important issue. I talk to people about it every day. I still have constituents getting sick, getting diagnosed with not just cancers, but respiratory illness, as well as mental health. There's a lot of people that still are getting mental health treatment because of what they saw that day and the days after. So the most important thing, not Republican, not Democrat, it's getting this bill done, which is what I'm putting 100% of my time behind right now.
Is there any resistance to it from any quarters?
Well, right now, the conversation we have, everybody seems to be supportive of it, but we can't seem to get it brought up for a vote. That's where I don't understand the pushback is coming from. I don't know who's keeping this from coming to a vote. Like I said, it's up to the Democrats right now, because they control both the House and the Senate, to move this legislation. If this came down as a standalone bill, I imagine it would pass overwhelmingly in both houses.
And you have senior Democrats on your committee. They share your view. They are asking Democratic leadership as well to bring this to a vote?
Well, the last time I spoke with Congresswoman Maloney, she was pushing to have this bill brought to a vote ASAP. I believe even Senator Schumer, who runs the Senate, would like to see the bill passed soon. I don't know, it's up to him how he brings it up in the Senate. But in the House, there are members of the Democratic Party that also want to see this bill passed as soon as possible.
We are watching the ceremony in Lower Manhattan right now in New York City. We are also, we understand that the president has arrived at the Pentagon, where he is going to lay a wreath. The sequence of events this morning with respect to 9/11 memorials is that the president will lay his wreath. There will be another moment of silence at 9:03, this one marking Flight 175 hitting the South Tower. We're looking at the Pentagon right now. Flight 175 hitting the South Tower at 9:03 a.m. 21 years ago. Then it'll be a little while until 9:37 a.m. where Flight 77 hit the Pentagon that you are looking at right now. The president will make remarks at the Pentagon, and at 9:59 there will be yet another moment of silence to mark the moment in which the South Tower of the World Trade Center fell. Representative Garbarino, you introduced a resolution to teach a 9/11 curriculum to school children. What would you teach? What would be in that?
Just, here in New York, we're required to teach it. It's about, what happened that day, what happened to the lead up to that day, the men and women who responded, the firemen, the police officers, the Port Authority officers, just making sure that it's kept in as part of the curriculum, because it's not recent past, it's 21 years, but it's also not history. It's something in between, and we need to make sure people don't forget. We've always said never forget. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of, anybody in high school now is not alive when this happened. I was in high school. I was a senior in high school when this happened. I'll never forget it. But there's people in high school now that they might not understand what happened, especially across the country where it's maybe not as fresh. New York, we still have people getting sick every day from the 9/11 illnesses. So other states, it'd be great to have them realize that we're still dealing with this tragedy 21 years later, and we'll still be dealing with it 50 years later. And it's just very important that it's something we never forget, just like Pearl Harbor. It's one of those days that everyone should know in U.S. history.
Well, you bring up two moments in which Americans were surprised by something and then rallied around the things that they would do to defend their freedom and their rights. I'm curious as to your take about the moment that we're in now. We still face threats to our democracy and freedom in the United States, but it's not an external threat. It's not like Pearl Harbor, where it was the Japanese, or 9/11, where it was terrorists in Afghanistan. How do you think about that? Because if we are going to teach this to kids, then there's a current threat that we need to think about as well, right?
Well, yeah, and I wouldn't say our threats to democracy aren't external. I think there are still, or I know there are still external threats to our way of life as Americans. So yes, it's a continuing crisis that we have to deal with, is making sure that our lives, as Americans, is protected, whether that's from the people who are trying to harm us from abroad or domestically. So it's absolutely something that we should continue to focus on. But when you look at 9/11, and it's probably the reason why some of the healthcare push has been difficult to get members to sign on to, is people don't realize that there are men and women still getting sick. They say, oh, that was 21 years ago. I thought this was taken care of. And I have to talk to my colleagues from other states and say, hey, no, people are still getting sick here. They're still getting sick in Virginia. They're still getting sick in Pennsylvania. And by the way, 434 of the 435 seats, congressional seats, have somebody who is part of the World Trade Center health plan. So this affects almost every congressional district in the country. So this is why I'm pushing for both this healthcare bill as well as the 9/11 curriculum in schools.
Representative, thanks for being with us to talk about this and to mark this important anniversary. Let's stay close on this issue until it gets done. Republican Congressman Andrew Garbarino of New York.